Someone once said to me that real estate is people expressing their emotions through money. And I really connected with that statement because they're spending this massive amount of money on a home, but it's very emotional. The decision is emotional. What happens in that home is emotional. What happens when you sell that home is emotional. So it's just a very emotional transaction. And I really respect that. I respect the trust that people put in me to make that happen.
Well, I'm excited for this week's episode of Entrepreneurial Impact. We've got Melinda joining us out of one of our KW offices in Northern Virginia, my co-host Dave Donaldson. And just so everybody knows, I had to do the intro this week, mainly because Dave had he was batting 0 for 3 on it. So he doesn't have the gift for gab on this episode. So Melinda, we might be covering all of his mistakes and actually carrying him through this podcast today in the event that he can't actually articulate the common language of English that we share in the Americas.
It's just one of those things that, and being live, and being on audio sets the different tone for things. But hey, I'm like, Joe DiMaggio, that, was like not quite 56 episodes in a row, but 42 in a row before I actually made an intro mistake. So I can live with that. So I'm okay with it. I'll take those percentages and we're good. I own it.
It gave Joe a great opportunity to tease you. So
Oh, it doesn't take much.
Any open opportunity, right?
I leave that door wide open on a regular basis. But yes, so we are here, and I'm very excited to have Melinda Schnur of Mosaic Residential here with us today. One of our outstanding. See, I can't talk. Y'all just, I'm gonna check out. Y'all go.
So let me take this one over for Dave to help him out on this one. I love you, Dave, and there's a lot of things. One of the best things that those of you who have not seen Dave in person, he's wonderful as an MC. He owns the crowd inside of a very large venue, and I'm very proud of him for that. And also, he does an amazing job that I can't even bring that type of energy. So, Melinda, I know nothing about you, but you've been with KW for how long?
7 years.
That's amazing. And my first question actually is going to be, how did you settle with Mosaic? I love that name, but what's the story behind that one?
Yeah. I had originally been a solo agent. When I decided to form a team, I wanted it to not just be about me, but about the team. And the name Mosaic came from a lot of little pieces coming together to make something great, something beautiful. And there are a lot of little pieces that have to come together to buy a home. So yeah, real estate is like a big mosaic art piece.
That there's so much background to that that's actually thoughtful, that most people come up with some name that's like, oh, I saw it in a dictionary or it came up on Google. So the fact that there's and it's really thoughtful, there's so much intent behind that. That's a really cool the reason is how you got to that name, and it's actually meaning behind it, which a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question before you go into kind of your journey. I got into real estate because I answered a Craigslist ad because my former employer at just I had an amazing sales night in a restaurant, and I was on cloud nine. He comes in from New York the next morning, rains on my parade, and just totally killed it. And I went on Craigslist. I was like, I'm done. Interviewed with Brandon Green and Bowman Keaty, and that's how I'm here today. How did you get into real estate?
Yeah. In my teens, my mom worked as a real estate assistant part-time, just something to do in addition to being a stay-at-home mom. And she worked for this really beautiful real estate agent who wore pencil skirts and high heels and had great hair and drove a Cadillac. And I thought, oh, that looks like a really cool job. And it kind of planted this seed in my mind, but it also formed a love of real estate. I started paying attention to what houses would sell for. I'd look in our little local magazine in Burke Center, the Burke Conservator, and see just sold for $322. And I just became interested in it. I didn't know how it worked or how to get started, but it was just an interest that kind of bubbled up over time.
So instead of selling Sunset, you're buying Burke.
Right. Yes, that's great.
Terrible dad joke. I apologize, but
I did. I did not go straight to real estate though. I went to school. I thought I'd get an accounting job. I had read up on real estate and realized it was, I wasn't going to make a living that way. At least that's what I heard. It was going to be very difficult to get started and not many people succeed at it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to go to school, work on accounting. I got a staff accounting job, and later I moved into technology. And I worked for this awesome firm, Proxicom. The owners were Raul Fernandez, and Ted Leonsis, who owns the Wizards and Capitals, was on the board. And I negotiated all our outsourcing contracts. And then 9/11 came, and the technology sector was collapsing. There were layoffs. And I started thinking about what I was going to do if I got laid off. And I thought maybe I could try out that real estate thing. So I got my license and started dabbling in it. And it just quickly took off for me. And I knew that it was time for me to leave my big tech job and do something I was really passionate about.
So I want to bring you back to something you said. And kind of understand this one is you said that you were told that it'd be hard and very few people are successful, right? And then fast forward to a point where you had to make a career change, and then you jumped into real estate, and then you were successful in a short period of time. What do you attribute your success? Now I'm getting the gift for gab from Dave now. What do you attribute the success to for you, that you were in the small percentage of people that were highly successful in a short period of time?
Yeah, I think that I had a lot of great relationships altogether, just friendships. And then my colleagues at the company I worked with had watched me negotiate over time. They had some hilarious nicknames for me, like Chainsaw, get the rate cut in half, Mel, So I think that they thought that I at least had the drive. Another girl in the office called me the get girl, because if I wanted to go get something, I always made it happen. So I was definitely terrified, but I had saved the money to, pay my mortgage and everything else while I tried to launch this business. And quite frankly, my best friend took a chance on me. He was like, all right, you've bought a house before, you have a mentor, let's do this thing. I'm older and I need to catch up here. And so him just taking that chance on me really gave me the gift to attract more buyers and sellers into my life.
It's incredible.
Now, when you got into the business, you were with a different organization, which is fine. We allow that around here, right? We all started somewhere, right? We didn't all drink the Kool-Aid from jump. But when I got to know you, you really threw yourself into your business, right? I don't know. I know you were successful before that, but I know when you joined Keller Williams, you started pulling different levels, and your status saying that your business really did start to take off. What was that for you? I mean, other than changing organizations, which sometimes people need a fresh start, but what changed for you internally?
Well, I came to realize, it's actually embarrassing to admit, but the 12 years that I had been with my former company, I came to realize that I'd never really gotten the full training that I actually needed to be successful. I also had a definition of success based on what I was surrounded with. So it was back to pencil skirts, high heels, and, driving a Lexus was a symbol of success. And I just, at some point in my life, I felt like I could be doing better. In one example, when my son was born 15 years ago, he was ill, and I really had trouble sustaining my business while I was taking care of him and in and out of the hospital. But when Zach was ill, after I'd moved to Keller Williams, I had all the tools that I needed then, because of all the training I had gotten, to actually grow my business while my son was back in the hospital. And by the way, he's doing great now. He's very healthy and 6 feet tall. So he's doing all right. But it was really about lack of knowledge. And I remember going to different agents in my former office and being like, how did you do it? And I thought they were really successful and I really looked up to them. But they had a mentality that was anti-collaboration. It was kind of like they didn't want to share their trade secrets. And I actually found that as I opened up and shared with them, they started taking things from me, and I would watch them then replicate them in the market and thought, this isn't for me. There has to be some place where we can actually support each other and share and lift each other up. And it took me a full year to really find this place. And then I fell in love with it very quickly. You were one of the first people that I met, David. When I walked into a business planning meeting, I had never been invited to participate in anything like that in my 12 years then, now 20 years, but 12 years. And I had never been to a business planning clinic. I'd never run it like a business. I had never done lead generation. I didn't know I should track my database. I had been flying by the seat of my pants for 12 years and still selling $8 to $10 million worth of real estate. But it was amazing how I would go from 12, 15 transactions to 42 transactions my first full year with Keller Williams. So huge change, having training, knowledge, and then having the collaboration of the agents here was amazing. Also being encouraged to be myself. I'm a jeans and t-shirt girl. I am not a pencil skirt, high heels.
And a hockey mom. Let's be clear. And a hockey mom.
And a hockey mom. So I'm often, have on a hat, a very large coat, and some Uggs. So it was really great for me to find out that I could be myself and I would attract people that fit into my life, back into my business as well. And yeah, I mean, it made for a really happy business, which I knew that I could love. Something was missing. I just was in the wrong place and I didn't even realize it. But now to do business and actually feel happy about it, like I love coming to the office. I love my clients. I love being with them. About 85% of our business comes from our database. And I don't know, it was the right choice. So it'll be 7 years next month since I've been here, and I'll be 20 years in business in May.
I love hearing these stories because there's trends in everybody's success stories. They're not all the same, but there's a lot of similarities, and I'm a big proponent of history repeats itself, just with different players, right? Or different pieces on the puzzle, where you want to call it. What's cool about your story that you said the reason that you jumped into real estate from the career in tech was there was somebody in your sphere that supported you and gave you the backstop. I wouldn't say the courage, because you're the one who had to, give the resignation and go full time, but you kept a sphere of close-knit people behind you as support, because we all need that. So who you're in business with matters, and who's in your world, your five, right? Or your five most influential people that are helping you grow. And then what's cool to hear from a top producer like yourself is saying, hey, look at all the stuff I was doing, and I sold 15 to 20 houses while bootstrapping it. So you already had a high level of achievement, right? And I don't mean that's not, please don't take that as that's not dismissive at all. It's saying hey,
I was flying by the seat of my pants. I was not organized. The checks were deposited right into my personal checking account. Surprise, you owe the money to IRS, write a check, They're
going to get their money one way or another, right?
I was living my life as an employee of X real estate firm, and I was not running or building a business. I was miserable trying to fit into an ideal that I saw at this firm. And even when I joined the firm, I was told, there's 250 of the best dressed real estate agents, so there goes my jeans and t-shirt out the window,
Shucks. But I think it's cool. You're, for those of you listening, there's actually you glossed over it, and I see most high achievers don't give themselves enough credit because you're humble, because you're hungry. You're hey, look, just another day in the office. It's nothing to keep it moving here. But you hit a ceiling of achievement based on what your own natural strengths are, which is cool. And then by coming over to a different environment that's really based on models and systems, processes, culture, whatever the other value adds that you had when you spoke with Kid United. But what I think is really awesome is to see a success story like yourself say, hey, look, I winged it. I was capable. I was going to have the drive and hustle to do it. But as soon as I changed my environment and then shifted to who I was in business with, I was actually able to put systems, models, and things that were actually going to allow me to be strategic, right? To get to another level of success, to truly have a business worth owning, to give you the life that you need for your kids. And I would imagine, I don't want to speak for you, Melinda, but I'd imagine that because of the business that you run and the opportunities that you took, it was able to afford you the luxury to be able to take care of your son and his time of like health being.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, I have a competitive ice hockey player daughter in the house. My son plays ice hockey too, but she is on 2 different travel teams, and it has afforded me the luxury to travel with her and to participate in those games and not need to be present working 60 hours a week in order to sustain or grow a business. And there are times I need to go back and hustle and double down on my lead gen and do things like that. I mean, I've hit spots like that in my life, but I also know what to do. And quite frankly, I often just go back to my very basics. So we will revamp and look at our operations manual. We'll look at, am I calling enough? Am I writing enough? Am I doing little pop buys? How am I touching my database? How can I help them during this specific time in our lives? I mean, back in the day when I was getting started, people were leaving their tech jobs as they were being laid off. And so one of the ways that I helped them was by helping them, in some cases, leverage real estate to make money. Some of them we had a big housing boom at the time, and some of them were buying homes and then turning around and selling them. In some cases, we were selling their contract to other people and making them money. And then because of my contacts, I was helping them find other jobs. So I'm always trying to think about how I can actually help my database of friends and family, as opposed to how they're going to help me. I feel like that comes naturally, that they want to refer me. And I feel like when I am referred, they're genuinely excited to make that connection. And they usually will tell that person, you can't use anyone else. You've got to talk to Melinda. So I feel very proud to be their realtor of choice.
You know what's pretty awesome to hear you talk about that. And again, Joe talks about the arc of the successful realtor, and you can say the success leaves clues, but compassion leads to success, right? And being in our industry, right, as a realtor, we learn so much about people in a very intense period of time.
Yeah.
And when we treat that appropriately, right, and we react in kind and in need, right, for others that are transitioning in their lives, right? You talked about things that have nothing and everything to do with real estate at the same time, helping them find out what do we know? We know people that are going through a tough time because they might need to sell or might need to find a job. We know others that might need to find people to help have leverage in their world, either in the tech industry, others, or in real estate. And we know how to introduce people because we just give a crap, right? Those that care succeed. People are not a number. And that's what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. And I mean, our clients, when I'm talking to a client and I'm connecting with them, that connection is really important. And I always say to them, this is not just a business transaction. This is a very personal transaction for someone that's buying a primary residence, especially because they are going to put their heart into that home, right? So I will say to them, like, we need to be able to trust each other, and we need to be able to have open conversations and some personal conversations. Like, they may be tough questions, like, do you intend to have children? Because if they tell me they're going to attempt to have children in a couple of years, then maybe we don't want to put them in a house on King Street where, there's a lot of traffic, et cetera, or maybe a specific school district is important. So one of the things I always say is it just can't be about business and, selling them a home. And so someone once said to me that real estate is people expressing their emotions through money. And I really connected with that statement because they're spending this massive amount of money on a home, but it's very emotional. The decision is emotional. What happens in that home is emotional. What happens when you sell that home is emotional. So it's just a very emotional transaction. And I really respect that. I respect the trust that people put in me to make that happen.
It's recently I like small books. Joe likes big books. I like small, digestible books. But I've been going through 25 Ways to Win with People from John Maxwell recently. And what's really great is that some of these successful writers and business papers, it's not a lot of there's ideas there, but it's how they present some of these things. But when I'm talking to you, I'm able to jump. I'm like, my gosh, I just read this, right? So when I'm going through that list and what I'm hearing you say, like I'm hearing and I'm going right through, it's like, do for others what they can't do for themselves. Listen with your heart. Be the first to help. I mean, this is three of the things that just jump off the list, and you just nailed them through like it was commonplace and everyday practice for you, because it is. And I think that's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It certainly makes the job enjoyable. And clients have really cared for me in return. I've gone through some stuff, especially with our son having some medical challenges. My clients have turned into friends, and we really care about each other. So they've been there for me too. And I'm really thankful for that. I don't really have any transactions that I walk away from that I'm not looking forward to seeing that person again. So
Come on, there's nobody in your phone that, like, when it comes up, it says "Do not answer."
Oh, yeah.
That's usually the other realtors.
I like to give them better names than that.
Gremlin, don't answer after 9 p.m. Otherwise, it turns into hell in a handbasket.
Right. I am not immune to crazy people. Every now and then I think, what did I do to attract this person into my life? And I do try to think about that. I try to think about what I'm attracting into my life. I'm like, wow, is my crazy showing? Am I flying some kind of flag here that's bringing these people to me? Maybe I need a little attitude adjustment, right? But I'm definitely not immune. There have definitely been some adventures in my career, but what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? And it's been great for me to have those kinds of transactions in my past, because it helped me to set boundaries. So, when a client comes to me and they might be really aggressive, if I can't diffuse that and connect with them and get them to trust me, then we're probably not the right fit. And I'm not going to try to put a square peg in a round hole. I'm not going to do it. It's not going to be good for them, because they might feel I'm too emotional or sensitive. And it's not going to be good for me, because I'm going to feel like they don't respect or trust me. And so it's definitely helped me to establish boundaries in my business of what I will and won't do and who I will and won't work with.
Let me ask you this question then. Why do you keep doing it then? So, like, you've had the career in accounting, you did the tech stuff, you got into real estate, you doubled your business, transitioned firms, all that kind of stuff. What gets you up every day to continue doing this and building this business?
There's a couple of things driving me. First and foremost, I want other women and girls to see that women can be strong, independent, run a business, and take care of themselves without compromising their family or having what they want to have. Maybe they don't want a family, but whatever that is, I want to inspire women and girls. And my daughter is inspiring me by playing ice hockey in a predominantly men's sport. So that's really important to me. But at the end of the day, making a living presents freedom to me, and that freedom keeps growing over time. And at this point in my life, I'm coming up on 50 years old, and I'm thinking about what my future looks like and what I want to do. And one of those things is to be able to donate a significant amount of money to Children's Miracle Network. And I love the line, money is only good for the good that money can do. And man, it would be an amazing gift for myself and my family to be able to make $1 million donation to Children's Miracle Network. So I'm thinking about that legacy. I'm also setting an example for my kids by showing them what an entrepreneur can do. And that's just not running a real estate business. That's introduced me to investments and many other things. We own some Airbnbs. We own some long-term rentals. We now set goals as a family around that. We travel internationally with the kids and take them on really nice vacations. We talk to them about saving themselves. As a matter of fact, I was just talking to the kids this morning. We have a family text message group called the Famdamly, and I sent them a message and I said, hey, I read this article, and working for mom, if I open this self-directed, or if I open this Roth IRA for you, if you work for me and we put $100 a month in it, you'll have $1 million by the time that you're 55. And so they both sent little, smiley and excited emojis. And then one of them said, hey, when can I get to work? What do you got? So I love inspiring them to do better with finances, and just think about what small things can add up to big things, like $100 a month,
Compound
your
effect.
Roth IRA equaling $1 million.
Yeah, that's a pretty strong way to wrap this up, right? You kind of summarize that your legacy through personal wealth, right? Legacy through charitable, and not just setting your children up in future generations because of the success that you've had, but by leading them and showing them how.
Teach them to fish, right? Don't just give them the fish. Don't get me wrong, I give them little fish all the time. But they're learning to fish too. They're managing their own finances. They're earning money, and they're learning how to leverage that money into bigger things. One of them has an Acorns account, which he's investing in. He also has bought some stocks in Microsoft and Apple. And it's been really fun to show him, look how much your stock went up, or here, this Tesla stock split. It went from being 1 share to now 15 shares. And so I love teaching them that. And same with our Airbnbs. They've been with us and stayed in those Airbnbs and watched me decorate them, or my husband fix something. And they want to know. They're like, well, how do you make money doing this? So we talk about it. And I think that will have their minds a lot more open to the different potential in life to earn money in more ways than just going to college and working for a corporation. But we'll encourage them to do whatever makes them happy. I just hope that they'll continue to explore the world around them and the way that they can enjoy it by investing in different things.
So let me ask you this, and we'll give you back the rest of your day. So you've had an incredible experience, right? But if you had 3 pieces of advice to share with others coming up or getting started, what would that look like?
So if you're new, then I would really focus on getting that foundation into place, because that was the biggest game changer for me. When I jumped into the business, I really jumped and I dove all in. But what I didn't do was create a foundation that I could build on. So I didn't have any systems or processes. I barely had a spreadsheet to track my clients and a file box from back in the day when we had the 3 copies, pink, yellow, white, press hard contracts.
That's a lot coming from an accountant.
And I kept those things in a box, and I just I didn't know how to grow the business. I didn't know how. And if I had just started a database and started following up with those people and demonstrating to them how I cared about them by leading with my heart, then I would eventually receive in return. And what I was doing instead was I was just being very transactional. It wasn't that I didn't like these people. I just did what came naturally. And I also thought, okay, the transaction's over. Thank you. And sometimes they would call me back. Other times they were just busy with life, and they saw a sign in the neighborhood and said, oh, we should call that lady. They forgot about me because I wasn't around. I didn't have a system to follow up. And after you've done a couple hundred transactions, it can be really hard to stay in touch with everyone if you don't have a system. And I've been so glad to reunite with some people that I had let go because I wasn't paying attention, right? I didn't have a system to help remind me. So really strong foundation would be number one. And number two would be, don't be afraid to ask. So, your family and friends, they might be a little nervous because you're new, but boost their confidence in you by letting them know that you have a great team behind you to support you, especially if you're with KW, right? You've got a whole office full of people out there ready to help. And I think I had a new agent say to me just the other day, he was like, well, I'm only 21. How's anybody going to trust me because I'm so young? And the first thing I did was give him an example of the amazing Jake Hamilton and tell him how Jake, before being 21, was producing more than a lot of us here. But I also said to him, if someone calls you out on your age, say, well, let me ask you this. If you had a choice between a BlackBerry and an iPhone 14, which would you choose? Because I'm your iPhone 14, right? You've got all the latest tech. You're young, resilient, a go-getter. Tell them all the great things about being a fresh agent, right? So I really loved that. He thought that was hilarious that he was my iPhone 14.
Or you can be like Dave and have an Android.
Samsung Galaxy, go for it, baby.
He's got the green bubble. Yeah, he's one of those. Everybody else is on the group text and give emojis and thanks and all that. And you're the one jacking up the whole conversation. I apologize, Melinda. Back to you.
Let's see, you said three things. So we said systems and processes, not being afraid to ask your friends and family for their support. And I guess the third thing is, don't be afraid to be yourself, because the people that are in your sphere, they love you for who you are, right? Or they wouldn't spend time with you. So don't spend so much time trying to create an image and fit yourself into a box. I did that for so long, and it was so uncomfortable that I think in a lot of ways, the people that I worked with maybe felt uncomfortable too. And so being able to be that person that, after they get to know you, can be casual and open and herself, that is part of the attraction, right? There's enough business for all of us. The person that only wants to work with the agent that is wearing the pencil skirt and the high heel and driving the Cadillac, they may not want to work with me. And guess what? That's okay. It's totally cool if jeans and t-shirt guy across the street's like, I need somebody down to earth I can hang out with and talk to, because this is a big deal, right? So be yourself, embrace that, and use it to your advantage, because you have more attraction and skills and charisma than you ever thought. Double down on it, right?
Oh, fantastic. Well, Melinda, I can't thank you enough for joining us today and being open, as honest, and just being yourself, because
Thanks.
impressive, just who you are. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So everybody, thanks for joining us on today's edition of Entrepreneurial Impact, and we will see you next week.
See ya.
Thanks, Melinda. Thanks, Dave.